Okay, today we'll discuss how could Imperium quickly improve efficiency and effectiveness of their worlds as to be able to raise more guard regiments and equip them to a higher standard. Alongside how to stop corruption, wastage of material, manufacturing abilities and other things caused from infighting, corruption and incompetence of the nobility and governors. This video shall mainly focus on fixing hive planets because they are the ones that produce most of material and manpower that Imperium utilizes. But everything that I say can also apply to other planetary types like civilized worlds, feral worlds, death worlds and so on. Also, before we start, to make this scenario realistically even plausible, we have to limit ourselves to minimum amount of resources and manpower that Imperium can afford to spare. Imperium is not in a great shape right now, and contrary to popular fan narrative, they are very much losing at the moment. So in short, our job is to make Imperium more efficient, starting off with just a single hive planet with limited resources. With all that said, let's start. First, we will need preferably 3 Astartes, but we can also do the job just fine with just 2 of them. 3 Astartes should all be from different legions/chapters so that each one can contribute their speciality without being redundant. Preferable lineup is 1 Ultramarine, 1 Imperial Fist and 1 Raven Guard. Due to Imperium being on the back foot at the moment and not really being capable of sparing troops, these Astartes should be picked from older experienced veterans but that have grown old and sluggish, so that a spot can open up for some fresh blood, aka new recruits, due to, chapters being limited to only 1000 Space Marines. As to allow this to happen, these 3 shall form their own new chapter, but they won't be recruiting any new members. This chapter shall forever stay at only 3 Space Marines. Their roles will be as such. Ultramarine will deal with economy, law and justice, creation of new bills, military organization, security, public healthcare and other essential managerial governmental services. Imperial Fist shall deal with construction project, public works, logistics and fortificational security. Raven Guard shall be the one in charge of secret police, intel gathering, counterintelligence and training of special forces for the purpose of disposal of unfriendly or uncooperative hive leaders. These 3 shall be joined by 1 singular guard regiment, preferably the one specialized in urban fighting. So let's start with the step-by-step process that they would do. First, pick the smallest hive city on the planet, then land all of your guard personnel on it and take control. If you believe that the nobility of the hive may interfere with your plans or even try to sabotage you as to take back control, deliberately plant evidence on them and then execute them French style. This may lead to resentment and possible treachery from other hive nobilities, so you gotta act fast and give by now vacant position of the hive noble to the most trustworthy member of the friendly/zealous noble house. This serves 2 purposes. First, it dictates that you can either play ball and get rewarded or be a treacherous little weasel and be annihilated. Second, now that you have installed a newcomer to the throne, he will be loyal to you and listen to whatever you say. Preferably, he should also be a zealous maniac that sees you as angels so that manipulation can be even more effective. Next, you have to figure out where your line of control ends, which should be roughly somewhere in the middle of the hive. Everything below that is probably ruled by hive gangs, criminals, gene stealers and mutants that don't respect your authority. Even the Arbites don't venture below for long periods of time. After that, you have to set up institutions like the secret police, intelligence agencies, courts, etc. The basic departments of the government in the spires, of course. This should not be hard because the spire basically consists of 99% bureaucrats. Now the Ultramarine has to fire redundant administratum personnel and buy new, more advanced cogitators, with the money saved from the lack of corruption at the higher levels, which will reduce the number of needed personnel even further. But they shouldn't worry too much because they're getting new jobs in the military. Smallest hives on average have only 10 billion people. If we say that only 10% reside in the spire and that Ultramarine job cuts reduce the number needed for administrative tasks in half, we should approximately have 500 million people to work with for the military. So what you do next is the invasion of hell, or more commonly known as hive and underhive. First, you gotta utilize intel and assassin forces to map up invasion areas and get rid of any potentially competent hive gang commanders. Next, it's time for a decade-long cleanup operation where Astartes shall utilize the same tactic of divide and conquer as they did on surface. Basically, if you join us, you will get a position in the government, protection in the form of professional soldiers, aka guard, alongside improvement of your area of control via new rails, roads, bridges, which the guard shall need for the resupply, but can also have purposes in the civilian sector as well. Sure, corruption in the control area of the hive and underhive shall explode due to you picking people based upon loyalty and convenience rather than competence. But that's the problem for later. Right now, the Astartes first need to worry about establishing control. It's also important to start softly indoctrinating and radicalizing people at this point. Create public schools and start indoctrinating kids subtly by saying how good it is to have centralized control and how God Emperor loves the people that do good things even if they are hard. For now, whilst the conflict to regain control of the hive is still ongoing, the example for the hard thing in question should be non-controversial stuff like seeing someone cheat on tests and then ratting them out. Astartes shall also start providing simple services like limited electricity, semi-safe drinking water, semi-functional sewage system and others by now, as to gain the loyalty and support of the local populace. Once the war for the control of the hive and underhive is won, probably with a very liberal use of the grenades as the room clearers, just as God intended, the real task of turning the semi-functional society into fully functional Orwellian dictatorship can begin. First, switch from basically anarchic economy into semi-planned one. Start demolishing structures, first in the spire, then hive, then underhive, all the whilst replacing them with newly masterfully engineered ones courtesy of the Son of Dorn. Every resident in the new house shall be given their new social security number that they have to renew every year. If they fail, they will be killed. They should also be tested by Biologus Mechanicus to confirm that they are not either gene stealers nor mutants. They shall also not be able to move residents without approval of the government. Basically, they shall need to wait their turn to go to the court to justify their resettlement. They shall also be provided with a simple Vox receiver so that they can hear their daily propaganda and get notified of the mobilization activation should the hive ever be under assault from the hostile force. Each child shall also have to go to school facilities to learn of simple maintenance of the machines, algae farming, basics of the military aka reservist training and other useful skills, and most importantly be instilled with the softer version of the Krieg's cult of sacrifice. Remember the example of snitching on your buddy when he is cheating on an exam? Well, now it's snitching on your parents when they are criticizing the government, and how you're gonna be the hero that the Emperor loves if you do that. New surveillance systems should also start popping up by now so that the grasp over citizens' lives can become even greater. Public services like filtered water, electricity, public healthcare, public transportation shall also become fully available 24/7 by now. After all, if you let an 18-year-old die from some easily treatable disease such as malaria, you have just wasted 18 years of food, water, electricity alongside 40 to 50 years of future work for nothing. Speaking of wastage, considering that the vast majority of the manufacturing was wasted in the gang fightings in the hive and especially lower hive, productivity should skyrocket conservatively by 50% and more realistically by 500%. Private sector should also start going ballistic by now, considering that it usually best works in the peacetime with a clear judicial system. But considering the Space Marines don't like to share power, especially with businessmen, they might be severely limited in their power with the high tax rate and antitrust bills. Space Marines are impossible to neither bribe nor lobby after all. Lower hive should also be cleared of toxic oceans by this point. Maybe Imperial Fist can find a new purpose for it as maybe like a moat around the city. You just kinda like pump all the toxic liquid from the inside to the outside and make approaching the city that much more difficult. Now let's get to how many troops could this small hive muster and what shall those be used for. Let's start off with the penal battalions. According to my calculations of taking Earth's new prisoner count for each year and putting it on the small hive city of only 10 billion, we get 14 million new recruits to penal battalions each and every year. Assuming that Imperial Guard regiment is 1 million men, which is not, it's closer to 250,000, but realistically it should be at 1 million minimum minimum, we could get 40 new flashback regiments, which you can use to more quickly expedite the pacification process of the other hives and then star sectors and so on. Now, to get actual guard recruitment and mobilization numbers, we would need to calculate birth rate, infant survival rate, factory conditions, and etc. Which I just don't have the time to do. It would probably take a couple hours to calculate. So anyway, if you like this video, smash like and subscribe, comment if you agree or disagree, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Till the next time, goodbye.